Hi, welcome to License to Succeed. On License to Succeed, we dwell on God's mind for success and God's way to success. God's mind for success and the way of God to success. There is how God sees a success, what God interprets to be success. There is also the how to attain that success. Both of them are the reasons why this channel has been established. It's been established to help you make the most of life. What's it about life? Given all the challenges, given how long we spend here on this side of eternity, shouldn't we make the most of it? Shouldn't we be regarded as a success at the end of it all? I think we should. And that's what any of us, should be working actively to achieve. I want to be able to say, like Paul, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. I want to be able to say, like Jesus, and we said that when in the last episode when we spoke about, what is success, what really is success. Jesus said, I have completed the work that you have given me. I have finished the assignment that you gave me. All right. And that meant that he got the right kind of results. He focused on the right thing and he had done his work in the right way, because he then went ahead to show the content of what he regarded as completion. He said, I gave them your name, I gave them your word, I gave them your glory. All right. All of those things. Okay. So we looked at what is success, and I would recommend that video to you. Is the previous edition. Please check it out, and it will be a great blessing, because what I said there is all too often success has been misrepresented. It has been misinterpreted, and a lot of people have been frustrated because they have bought into a wrong concept of success, which predominantly has been woven around wealth, riches, being well to do, and all of that stuff. And so you'll find exactly, what God's mind about success is. And, that should help you a great deal. Here today, we'll be talking, as you can see on the screen, about what is failure, what really is failure. I have said that, in life, and as far as the kingdom of God goes, as far as the kingdom of heaven goes, you can only be on one of two sides. Nobody sits on the fence. Okay. It's either a failure or success. All right. Nowhere in between. Okay. Nowhere in between. And at any point in life, you are, you should be appraising yourself in that regard, within that context. Am I a failure? Am I a success? Okay. At the end of the day, there will be a final verdict. But what you are working on, what I am working on, is that when that verdict is going to be given, we'll be able to predict it, and predict it accurately, like Paul did, like Jesus did. Okay. So we will be looking at failure today. What really constitutes failure? What really constitutes failure? So welcome to License to Succeed once again, and let's get on with today's focus. What exactly is failure? What exactly is failure? And I'm going to proceed along, two basic lines. First, what is the end result, all right, that determines failure. And then I will speak about, what are those things that even if the end result looks like it's okay, or it points to success, all right, it may not be quite success. It may be indeed failure. All right. So you may have, as it were, the right fruit, but you may still be disqualified. Why? Because you didn't play according to the rules. The rules talk about how your success must be achieved for it to be truly regarded as success. When an athlete runs, all right, how many times have you seen athletes who are disqualified? They came first, or so it seemed. But because they didn't play according to the rules, they were disqualified. In which case, rather than being returned as the first, as successful, they were returned as the last, as failures. And you want to be mindful of that so that you don't deceive yourself, so that you don't misinterpret, what you are, who you are really, and what you have achieved. And by the way, while we're at it, it's important to know that you can't mock the one who is the umpire. God is the umpire. He's the one who determines ultimately success or failure. He has only given us the privilege of what will be his criteria, all right, for judging someone's success or someone a failure. And so we have the privilege to walk towards it. We have been given, if you like, what we call an expo. We've given the privilege to see what the marking scheme will be like, and it's up to us now, how well we can work, to fulfill the requirements of the marking scheme. There's something that's very, very important, okay? And it's a simple statement. That simple statement tells us how God will view failure or success. And it simply says, by their fruit you shall know them. By their fruit you shall know them. Now, this reference was made in Matthew 7, verse 16. You find it also in Matthew 7, verse 20. And let me quickly read that portion. I will start from Matthew 7 and verse 15. It says, beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. Said, do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Verse 19, every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. By their fruits you shall know them. All right. So that's the way it is. What is being said here is that you will be regarded a success or a failure by the fruit that you present, by the fruit that defines you or characterizes all that you have done while you are here. It says we want to know who has been contributing and who has not been. We should pay attention to their fruit. Okay, by their fruit you shall know them. When you look at the parable of the talents in I believe it's in Matthew 25, you will, or Luke 19, you will see there that the master who traveled gave talents to his servants. And when he came back, what did he ask them for? He said, "What have you produced? What fruit, as it were, have you produced?" So they brought back talents, which in that area is what you bring back. You were given talents. He said, "Do business with these until I come, or occupy until I come. Get yourself busy and see how much you can make from this." And of course, what are you expecting? You're expecting them to bring back talents. Talents in that case was the fruit. It's like somebody, in a bank, or somebody, in investment banking, or, asset management. What are you expected to bring? What was invested? What you have as your talent, as it were, is the capital that was invested, and maybe the funds that you got from other people, and you'll be paying them back. All right, some kind of return which is denominated in the same currency. Okay. And so, the owners of the business also must be paid back in the same currency. So it is talent for talent. In that case, your fruit is the talent that you produce. All right, the talents that you produce. So if you are not bringing talents, then you are not a success. If you are not bringing more talents than you were given, that means you are losing money, then you are not a success. All right. But we can also, it doesn't apply like that in every case, because in some cases, the issue is not denominated in currency. In the case of Jesus, for example, well, what is he asked to do? All right. When he was telling his father, "I have finished the work that you have given me. I have completed my assignment." All right. He said, "None of the people you gave me is lost." What was he supposed to do? He said, "As you sent me, so also I am sending them into the world." That was his mandate. His mandate was to reproduce himself in others. All right. So his fruit is how much of himself, or whether or not he had succeeded in reproducing himself, to others. He was supposed to reveal himself, reveal who sent him. That was his mandate. He had been given everything that he needed to do that. As it were, his own talent was all that he had been given. The knowledge of who sent him, the training that he had received, which he was supposed to replicate in others. All right. And he did that, very well. Now, if you look at the parable of the sower, you find that in Matthew 13 or Luke 8. And there, it was a sower or a farmer who went out to sow. But the farmer was bearing seed, and he planted seed. When you plant seed, what does it bring? It brings fruit. That's really where, the concept of fruit comes from. All right. And the farmer brings seed bearing fruit. It's important to take note of that, because inside the fruit is a multiplication of the seeds. Usually only one seed produces a crop, but the crop produces plenty of fruits. And in each of the fruits, there are many seeds, not just one seed. Not just one seed. So you see that ultimately the seed replicates itself, all right, through the production of fruit, just like Jesus replicated himself, as it were, in the person of each of his disciples. Each of his disciples were like fruit, but in them was the spirit that they had contacted from him. And so they were able to operate like him, to do things like him, indeed to do greater things, than he did. And so those are concepts that help you to appreciate what kind of fruit am I supposed to present. All right. So the first part of whether or not you have failed is, what fruit have you to render? Have you to showcase? All right. So you are not just here, you are known by your fruit. That means it identifies you as a success or a failure. When you have no fruit, or you have the wrong fruit, you have failed. I mean, imagine somebody that has been given orange seeds, And the person comes back and reports a bountiful harvest and says, and when we look at the fruits that he has brought, we find that he has brought bananas. Now, we know that that's not success. Why? He was given orange seeds, but here he is presenting to us bananas. Something has happened somewhere. Now, that's a fraudulent kind of scenario. And unfortunately, I believe that's what many of us are caught in. Many people are caught in that scenario. They have fruit to show, but it's not the right fruit, because you can't relate that output or that fruit to what seeds, what talents, what the gifts they have been endowed with. And that's a problem. That means you did not use what you were given to produce the fruit that you're showing. Okay? The truth is that one of the things that gives away the wolf that is pretending to be a sheep is the fruit. Because we know what the fruit of a wolf will be. The spirit inside the wolf is different from the one inside the sheep. So for the sheep, for the wolf to pretend to be a sheep while still carrying his spirit, it will show in the fruit that the wolf ultimately produces. That's why you don't look at what people call themselves. You look at what they produce. You look at what impact they have. You look at what report card they are rendering. That way, it will either confirm that they are authentic, or it will give them away as impostors and miserable failures. And you have to be mindful of that. I'm going to be speaking expressly on the place of talent, in the pursuit of success somewhere down the line very soon. But, just to make certain references to that so that we can understand, our focus today is about what is failure. What is failure? And that's how, begin to understand what failure is. I'll be speaking a lot more about, some of the things that show whether you have the right fruit, and whether you have approached a failure or success in the right way shortly. Now, let's come to the issue of the concept of wealth being mistaken for success. And I want to draw your attention to something. Now, Jesus had one encounter with a rich person. He spoke two parables talking about riches expressly, people who were rich. And we can draw some insights from them. If you look at Luke 18, you would find the case of a rich young ruler who came to him wanting eternal life. He was wealthy, but he wanted eternal life. That is, was he really a success? Even he was not confident that with his wealth, he was successful. Well, something was missing. Obviously, he wasn't fulfilled. All right. And he thankfully knew what was missing. And you and I know that if it were possible for his money to buy it, since he was wealthy, he would have bought it. He would have bought eternal life. He would have bought the fulfillment that he was lacking. But he couldn't. He had to run to somebody whom he believed, could help him. Now, when he went to Jesus as the good master that he called him, he didn't offer Jesus money. Either he must have thought he's not the kind that is moved with money, or that he didn't think that there was any amount that, will help him, or that maybe he would have been insulting him by offering him money. But whatever it is, in his quest for that experience, that asset that he did not possess, his money had no role to play. Now, when Jesus told him what he needed to do, he still did not ask him for money. In fact, he was telling him to do something contrary. He said, go and sell your possessions, dispose with the riches, give it to the poor, the people who truly need it, and then come and learn from me, all right, what it takes to enjoy that life. And he could not bring himself to doing that. He said because he had plenty of possessions. So his riches held him back from securing what would have made him a true success. What a shame. What a shame. What a shame. Okay. Now, that's one instance. Another instance was the parable of the rich fool. In this, license to succeed on this channel, we will make a lot of references, as you must have begun to note, to parables. Why? Because in them contain the principles of the kingdom of heaven, the principles that you need to be successful in life. And if you want to learn expressly and in detail those parables, Jesus spoke 38 of them, and many of us have neglected them. Check, the Equip Bootcamp, 40 days, where we run you through each of the parables with emphasis on practical life applications so that you can be empowered in your journey, all right, to succeed, and to succeed indeed. You will see God's will, clearly laid out. You will see how clearly laid out as well. So check that out, and secure your seat in the next boot camp. All right. So the parable of the rich fool, you'll find that in Luke 12. And in Luke 12, here was a man who apparently had a business. He was rich. All right. He had a vineyard. And then, on one occasion, he had a bountiful harvest. Unexpected, apparently. He was excited. And then he began to think, what will I do with this new abundance that has come? He said, okay, I will break down, my storehouses, or build bigger ones so I can keep all of them. And then God said to him, okay, now today, your soul will be demanded of you. And he was referred to as a fool because it was all life for him, was all about his riches. And not only that, it was all about himself and no one else. Again, a rich person who ended a failure, because that was what he was, that was the judgment that was passed on him. Yes, you have the abundance, but hey, that doesn't make you successful. That doesn't make you successful. Then, of course, you have in Luke 16, the rich man and Lazarus. We're told of a rich man who fed sumptuously daily, and we're told about a poor man who sat at his gate. The long and short of that story was that the rich man never looked in the way of the poor man, despite the fact that the poor man, could have benefited from the rich man. I mean, how much would the poor man have eaten, given the abundance that the rich man possessed? What is it that the poor man could have wanted? This single poor person that the rich man could not have afforded, including his health. because the poor man who had sores all over his body, all of that didn't move the rich man. Again, on the other side, of life, the rich man was categorized a failure, while the poor man, was in the right place where you and I would like to be. And obviously, he was regarded a success. Now, that should tell us something. I've just thrown up 3 cases of rich people. And in one of the instances, Jesus made a statement. He said, it's going to be difficult for a rich person to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, it's easy for people to explain that away and make it look as if, it doesn't matter. It's not saying that you can't be rich. Yes, it's not saying that it can be rich, but it simply says that when you focus on riches as the basis for assessing success, all right, it makes true success harder to achieve. Let me take that again. When you focus on riches or wealth as the measure of success, as the predominant or primary measure of success, it makes true success more difficult for you to achieve. It makes true success more difficult for you to achieve. That's the problem with the rich fool. That was the problem with the rich young ruler. That was the problem with the rich man, in the case of Lazarus. And the reason for that is also fairly simple. We often talk about the fact that, money is not the root of all evils. It's the love of money that's the root of all evils. A lot of people, who don't want you to cast aspersions on wealth or riches or money, will argue vehemently. All right. We are quick to point out that money is not the root of all evils, is the love of money. What they fail to realize is that money breeds the love of money. What about that? And we can prove that. We can prove that. If power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, those who get power are not necessarily corrupt, but the power, when they come into power and they see its workings, then the corruption of power gets a hold and festers so that they become absolutely corrupt. So money can lead to the love of money, which in turn will lead to that evil that is being talked about in scripture. So we need to talk about that more. It is something that breeds love. Love does not just happen. Something breeds it. And plenty, will breed the love of money, especially for somebody coming from a position where they have been extremely poor. Okay, that's not the focus for today. So I wanted to draw that, all right, and put that right on the front burner so that you understand that when it comes to failure, it is more synonymous with riches and wealth, all right, than any other thing. So never, or put differently, if you are very successful, and your success is defined in monetary terms, then you should check it. You should be wary, because you may be fooling yourself. You may be fooling yourself. Wealth and riches do not constitute fruit, all right, typically in the sense in which the Bible refers to it. It could be for investment bankers, perhaps, because, they are trading with money, all right? But in reality, even for them, it isn't. And, I would show why that may be the case. So I wanted to put that, out there for us. Now, let's look at the how. We have said there is a God has a measure of what is regarded as success. Now, but part of his measure, part of what he looks at is the how. How did you achieve it? Is as important as what you achieved. All right. So there are two indices. And let me show you about 9 or 10 different things that can call your attention to the fact that whatever it is you have achieved, whatever it is you claim to be fruit, however you think that points to success for you, you may well be regarded as a failure. As a failure. All right. Now, so I'll start with those who, I'll start with where we just stopped. Material possessions, wealth. Number one. So number one, how is when you focus on the wrong outcome, you are walking towards the wrong outcome. There's already a problem. Failure. You have, as it were, booked your flight or your journey on the path of failure by focusing on the wrong outcome. By focusing on the wrong outcome. All right. If you look at Luke 10, and Jesus there sent out his people, all right, delegated his assignment to them. So if you want to learn delegation, that's a place you want to read. And when they came back, and he gave them power and authority, what they needed to get their job done. All right. But when they came back, what did they report? They reported how the demons had been, obedient to their word. For them, excitedly so, they were successful in their assignment. They must have been surprised when Jesus acknowledged that, yes, that is true, but that's not what to focus on. He told them, you ought to focus on the fact that your name is written in heaven. Notice, they were talking about demons. They weren't talking about the impact that they made on the people, the benefit that the people derived out of their coming. How much of the word that the people learned. When Jesus was telling God that he had completed his assignment, what was he saying? He said, I gave them your name, I gave them your word, I gave them your glory, and all of that. Guess what? He never talked about any sign or any wonder. And he did many in front of them. He did many in front of them. But they did not appear in his scorecard the way he presented it to God. And he certainly knew what God wanted. God was not interested in the signs because they did not constitute fruit. They did not constitute fruit. So if that's what you are looking at already, no matter what you do, you're wasting your time. You will not be regarded as a success in the true sense of what success is to God. They must have been surprised. Said Jesus told them, you focused on the wrong thing. That was not the reason that I gave you power and authority. It was meant to be a means to an end, not an end in itself. Not an end in itself. Focusing on the wrong fruit. All right. He said in Matthew 7 and verse 23, Luke 13 and verse 27, he said, many of you are going to call me Lord, Lord, in that day. And I'm going to say to you, depart from me, you workers of iniquity. And you're going to say to me, but we cast out demons in your name. We did many signs and wonders in your name. I said, big deal. So what? That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what I'm looking for. That's not what confirms you as a success. No, that's not. So imagine once you set your eyes on what does not count as success in the eyes of God, it doesn't matter what else you do. You have missed it. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. That's all. You are on the wrong lane. You need to move away from that lane because the destination is already, you're going to get lost. You're going to arrive elsewhere, thinking. And it doesn't matter what your experience is on the journey. It won't matter what your experience is on the journey once you are on the wrong lane. Many are on the wrong lane now. They need to get away. You are claiming your claim to fruit, your claim to outcome, your claim to what matters most, what is the basis of success, is wrong. Is wrong. In Luke 12 and verse 15, Jesus said, when that man was telling him, come and tell my brother to share the inheritance with me, Jesus said, who made me a judge over you? And then went on to speak a parable, the parable of the speck and the log. Okay. And who made me a judge? But he then said, beware of covetousness. For a man's life does not consist of the abundance of his material possessions. That is, a man's life does not consist of his wealth. That is, my assessment of how much contribution a life has made does not involve the wealth. That's what he's saying. Doesn't involve the wealth. There are more valuable things to do. There are things that are more important than just possessing the abundance of material, wealth. So that's the first thing. When you don't understand what true fruit is, when you claim the wrong thing as fruit, when you are focused on the wrong thing, success is very doubtful. In fact, it's impossible. All right. Let's look at number two. Number two, when your motivation is wrong, it doesn't matter what your outcome is. When your motivation is wrong, it doesn't matter. Motivation matters a great deal to God when assessing success or failure. You can fail by having the right kind of fruit, focusing on the right kind of fruit, walking the right path, but having the wrong motivation. How do we come to that justification? How is that even possible? Well, Paul was saying in 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 3, he said, look, if I give my body to be burned and I don't have love or charity, as he calls it, it does not profit anything. It doesn't profit anything. Let's read it. So I put it to you in the exact right words that Paul used. 1 Corinthians 13, and I would read to you from verse look at from verse 3. He said, and though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profits me nothing. Let me read for you the New Living Translation. Okay, so you have a more contemporary, rendition. He said, if I gave everything I have to the poor and even sacrificed my body, I could boast about it. But if I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. I would have gained nothing. If I didn't love others, I would have gained nothing. All right. The Message Bible says, if I have given everything I own to the poor, and even go to the stake to be burned as a martyr, but I don't love, I've gotten nowhere. So no matter what I say, what I believe, and what I do, I'm bankrupt without love. That's a failure without love. That's a failure. Question is, what is your motivation for the pursuit of success? That's what we're saying. So yes, you are going after love. I mean, you are going after, fruit. All right. Yes, you have identified the right thing that you're expected to deliver. But what is your motivation? What is driving you? Why are you in pursuit of that fruit? It is important, and it is shown here. For true success to be achieved by anyone, this is part of the how. Your motivation is crucial. That's why God does not look at the facade. He looks at the heart, inside. What is driving you? That's why many of those rich guys failed. They were driven only by self, not by love. No care for anybody, no thought about anybody, not even their workers who helped them to achieve the riches. So why are you doing what you are doing? Why are you putting in all of this effort to ensure you're a success? Is it also you can grandstand? Is it also you can beat your chest? Is it also you can be saying to people that, oh, I was the one that did that. I was the one that helped that. What is your motivation? What is in your heart? Your heart needs to be right, and love is required. A consideration for others. All right? That's what we are called to do. That's the life we are called to live. So how can we claim success, when that is not part of the equation? Said, love one another. Love, the greatest commandment. Love God. The second is like unto it. Love one another. So the bottom line is love. In fact, you can't love God without loving others. That will be fake. So that's number two, your motivation. Your motivation. And this is very crucial. Number three is just as crucial. That is faith. 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 In Hebrews 11 and verse 2, it said, through faith, the elders obtained a good report. A good report. The report that Jesus' disciples obtained when he sent them out and they came back and said, this is what we have achieved, was not a good report. It was a bad report. It was a failed report, or report of failure. But here in Hebrews 11 verse 2, he said, the elders obtained a good report. How? Through faith. Their pursuit was motivated by faith. They ran on the platform of faith. The just shall live by his faith. Habakkuk 2 verse 4, Hebrews 10 verse 38, it said, and if he does not, I will not have pleasure in him. That is, you can even bring your fruit, but how did you run the race? By faith? Did you rely entirely on what you are capable of doing? Or did you have to trust God completely every step of your journey? Did you run it all by yourself without depending on God's help every step of the way? Or your confidence was in your skill, was in your knowledge. It matters. It matters. It matters. Now, Romans 14:23 says, whatever you do that is not on the basis of faith, or not driven by faith, or not of faith, is sin. And if it is, that can be success. If your fruits are the product of sin or sinful conduct, inappropriate approach, then it's not acceptable. We can't be celebrating it as success. We can't be celebrating it as success. And this, again, is one of the areas that people can really, miss it. Because, yes, we are capable. Yes, we can get some things done. But that doesn't mean that we're in full control and we should not trust God. So how much of help did you look to God for? Did you receive? Did you acknowledge that it came outside of you, not your doing, in what it is you're celebrating? It's very important. It's very important. That's why Paul was very clear. I mean, you wonder why he made that statement, at the point that he knew that his journey was coming to an end. He said, I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. Can you imagine such a, such a declaration? I have kept the faith. Now, he showed clearly that I succeeded, whatever it was I did, because I ran this race as a faith-based race. I didn't depend on myself. I depended completely on the grace of God. I held on to God. I fought against obstacles based on faith, trusting God to come through for me. So whatever I have to present, I cannot beat my chest and say, I was the one that accomplished it. It was by faith. It was by faith. And the reason that God said that if you don't run by faith, whatever you accomplish, I will not be excited by it, is because by strength shall no man prevail. Don't come before me and beat your chest because who you are and everything that you could possibly do, I, made it happen for you. And I didn't send you to go and operate by yourself. I sent you to operate based on me, to rely on me. That's why Jesus said every step of the way, the works that I am doing, it's not me, it's my Father who does the work. He said, as I hear, so I judge. My judgment is not mine. My commitment is to do the will of the one who sent me. I'm totally reliant on the person that sent me. I depend on him. My faith is in him. So even he walked the path of faith, not trusting in himself, as endowed as it was, but acknowledging every step of the way. And you can see what he did. When a time came that he was really burdened by sorrow, he went to the garden to cry unto God in prayer. Can this cup pass? Can we renegotiate this deal? Nevertheless, not my will, but your will. It's important. You can show the fruits. But how did you accomplish it? By faith, if not, failure. By love, if not, failure. Are you in fact presenting the right fruit, or you are presenting mangoes when you are supposed to present, oranges? Failure. So those are three. Let's go on to the next. Number 4. We saw in the parable of the talents. They were given talents. 2 servants used the talents, produce more talents. The third servant sat idly, kept the talent away, did not use it, had nothing as a surplus to produce. He only produced the same talent. What the master was expecting was that for them to trade the talent they were given. If they had come to report to him that they had gotten additional talents and they didn't tell him how and confirm that they traded these talents he gave them originally, he would not have been impressed with them. Why? He gave them what to trade with. He gave them what to use. God has given you and I what to use. We can't, the seed that we're given is that of an orange seed. We cannot come back and show guava as fruits or bananas as fruit. It won't work. That result won't earn us any commendation. That's a failure. That means we ignored what we were given as the primary resource, as the vehicle through which we are expected to produce the results that will be acceptable. And we went looking for another. So we have come showing what we weren't sent to do. And if you have gone to accomplish what you were not asked to accomplish, you have failed. There are no two ways about it. Are you using the talent that you were given? You can't claim to be a success without using the talent that you were given. You can't claim to be a success without using the talent that you were given. All right. Like I said, I'm still going to talk about that, formally. All right. I'm going to talk about that formally. Number 5, have you cut corners? And you can take that together with the talent. Because if you've gone to get another seed, you are cutting corners. Now, but another way to look at it is this, that there is a process to achieve success. If you don't follow that process, you will fail, whatever it is that you show. There is a way to do it. Some people will try to cut corners. They don't give the effort what it takes. They want to jump certain stages. They're in a haste. They are all efforts to cut corners. Success has a process. It has to be recognized. There is a reason why Jesus spoke the parable of the sower. It tells you that in order to succeed, you must follow a process. Success that is not process-driven, principle-driven, will not be acceptable. You have tried to short-circuit the process, and it won't be acceptable. It doesn't matter what your fruit is. It will not be acceptable. That's what happened when Jesus spoke the parable of the wise and the foolish builders. If you notice in that parable, both the wise and the foolish built structures. They had their houses. If they had used the same design, when you look at the houses externally, the facade, they will be the same. They will be equally beautiful. And you almost think that, they're of the same quality. The fruits are the same. But the problem is what? Is that one would not last. Why would it not last? Because the process that was followed was not the right process. One was built on the rock, which is the right process. The other was built on sand, which is the wrong process. But in the course of time, temporarily, they look like the same. In the course of time, we will separate the wheat from the chaff. If you cut corners, you are a failure it doesn't matter what your outcome is. The guy who built on the sand had a house that looked as beautiful, possibly even more beautiful than the one that built on the rock. But we today, in today's world, we will celebrate the more beautiful one, not paying attention to what is more important. How did he even build this structure? Is this structure going to be a threat because tomorrow it will collapse and it can kill people? Or is it one that we can trust? So we need to go beyond just these physical things and stop clapping for things that, and are superficial. They look like original, but they are superficial. They can't last because those who have accomplished them, so-called accomplishment, they cut corners. They cut corners. They didn't show respect, nor did they observe process. When, Joshua was being counseled in Joshua 1 and verse 8, he was told, this book of the law, there's a book of the law, there are principles, there are processes to observe. It must not depart from your mouth. You must meditate on it night and day, that you may observe to do all that is written in it. Don't cut corners. Observe the process and keep to it. Because only then will you achieve what is considered to be prosperity and good success. So if you like, maybe that house built by the foolish person was good because the house was standing, it looked beautiful, maybe it was functional for a bit until the rains showed up, until the floods came, until the winds blew, and then everything disappeared. And we'll be lucky if it didn't kill people at the time it came crashing down. So that's number 5. Number 6 is character. Interestingly, love, faith that we've talked about, they talk about character. The parable of the talents reveal the importance of character in the pursuit of success. The importance of character in judging success or failure. If love doesn't count, if the lack of love disqualifies you, the lack of faith disqualifies you, those are critical elements of the fruit of the Spirit, which describes the character, all right, of God, that the character that you and I ought to exhibit, the character that ultimately is the greatest value that we'll have to show. The ultimate measure of success is who you became, who I became. Who do we look like? That was what Jesus did to his people. He built them into men of great character. And the rest is history. The rest is history. Okay, so the pursuit of success, if you were not to end up as failure, must be such that is driven by the right character attributes. Those are the things that won't make you cut corners. Those are the things that won't make you just pursue success for your own sake. It must be motivated by those kind of attributes. And whatever you achieve must also develop character. 2 sides. So you are building character, you are driving your pursuit by character. So there is a process of continuous development in your character. Of continuous development in your character. That process, the pursuit of success, that's the way that it is. All right? That's the way it is. Let's look at, a scripture that occurs to me here And I'd like to read that scripture for us. Okay. And it's a popular uh, scripture that I'm sure you are likely to know. And let's see if I can locate it. 2 Corinthians 3 and verse 18. 2 Corinthians 3 verse 18. This is what it says. It says, but we all with open face, beholding as in a glass the glory of the Lord, are changed or transformed into the same image from glory to glory, even as by the Spirit of the Lord. That tells you that our pursuit in life must be such as continually builds our character towards the character of God, the character of Christ, the image of God. All right, that's it. If your pursuit is not doing that, you're wasting your time. You're going to end up a failure. When in the parable of the talents, the master celebrated those who brought back, good reports. What did he say to them? He said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Well done, thou good and faithful servant. He was celebrating their character. That statement exhibited what was really behind, the performance that they recorded. What was really determining their conduct, their approach. While the other was busy looking for excuses, they were more focused, were men of character. They were men of character. And then he promoted them into leadership positions. And as they continue in that, because if they are faithful in little, they'll be faithful in much, you see that continues to build their character. All right. So it is more of a growth in character, more than a growth in riches or in wealth. That's what is important. This is what matters the most. And so that's number 6. Now, number 7 is what you are pursuing. Is it focused on legacy? Leaving a legacy. John 15 verse 16. I called you, you didn't call me. And I ordained you to go and bear fruit. And that your fruit should abide. That's to go and bear lasting fruit. That is, your results must have a legacy dimension. Your results must be things you have built to last. Look at the result that Jesus obtained when he reproduced himself in the men who were following him as a leader. Those results, we're still enjoying them today. Those guys went ahead, built, impacted people who went ahead, impacted others, who went ahead, impacted others. They have impacted you and I today, and we are impacting others. I hope you are impacting others as well. All right? That's what, it's about. Legacy. A legacy of value. Of value. This is one of the problems with riches. Many times it is cut short because the people who come into it, who inherit it, are unable to do much with it. A lot of instances like that. Of course, yes, there have been those who have sustained things over the years, but I presume that if we were to undertake a research in that regard, we will see a character foundation there. Somewhere in there, because character is what sustains legacy. Character is what sustains legacy. What Jesus gave as a legacy was his divine nature, what is character, and that will carry, that is a lasting legacy. Is a lasting legacy, and that's what we should be doing today as parents. That's what we should be doing today as leaders. Focusing on building a character-based legacy, because that's a lasting legacy and not a wealth-based legacy, because it doesn't have that stamina. All right, so that's it. Number 8, if you are focusing on self, like the rich fool, like all the rich people that we have used in this example, the rich fool, the rich young ruler, the rich man, in the case of Lazarus, then there is no hope. There's no hope. If whatever you are showing is driven by focus on self, then there is no hope. Okay? If you are self-centered, there is no hope. Whatever you achieve is regarded as a failure, Number 5 is, what impact did you make on others? What impact do you make on others? The parable of the sheep and the goats in Matthew 25, you check it out. What did God do there? He separated the righteous from the unrighteous. And why? What was the basis? What was the criteria? The righteous were people who had helped the helpless, who had fed the hungry, who had given water to the thirsty, drink to the thirsty, who had given clothes to the naked, who had visited the sick in the hospital, who had provided shelter to, the homeless. And the unrighteous, you can see. Now, what is clear there is that what is regarded as success has to do with what value, what benefits have you accrued to others? In what way, as your intervention, have your, the outcomes of your life helped others, all right, to make meaning of their lives? That is success. That is success. And it doesn't take riches to be able to do that. In any case, we have seen that the rich cannot do that. They don't help the poor. Yet they are expected to. But they can't. They hold on too much to their riches. When in fact, by helping the poor, they can multiply the riches. And Jesus made that clear. Finally, do you enjoy fulfillment from, whatever it is you have achieved? It's a measure of how successful you have been or whether you're a failure. That rich guy didn't enjoy fulfillment. He was still looking for eternal life despite being very rich. That rich fool wasn't fulfilled, was not contented. He still was looking at how, despite having barns filled with, stuff, he still wanted to build bigger ones. What he had that he wanted to store for many years to come, he didn't need it really. He wanted to secure himself and his family well into the future. But there are people who were not sure about tomorrow, and all they needed was something very little, which interestingly would have been the smartest way to secure his own future. But no, he wanted to keep everything. He was not fulfilled. It was clear. When whatever you have achieved does not give you fulfillment, it's also an indication that you are not a success. You are a failure. It's an indication of failure to have done so much, to have so much to show in terms of results, but you are not fulfilled. You need to sit down well to know that there's something wrong. You have not run this race well. And what you have will not be considered a success. Rather, it will be considered a failure. It's been a long one, but this is such an important matter. This is such an important issue. What is success? What is failure? If you are licensed to succeed and you want to succeed, you start from, the first session that I gave, which was to address the fact that, let's be clear, that you have no excuse to fail. You have no excuse. None of us will have an excuse to fail. But the good news is that each of us is licensed to succeed. Each of us is licensed to succeed. We are licensed to succeed. However, in order to then take full advantage of that license, we need to know what success means. And that's why we talked about what is success previously. We need to know also what failure means. That's why we're also talking about failure today. And then we will begin to talk about what is the license and how do we make proper use of the license. If you have not received anything from the last video where I talked about what is success and what is failure, you should know that success is not measured by wealth or riches, that success is measured according to the heart, to how God sees it, and how you achieve it is as important as the results or the fruit that you have to show. And that's what we have placed emphasis on, all right, in the last video and in this. And hopefully that gives you a good idea of what this non-negotiable race towards success is. All right. And I know you can make it. I know I can make it. And, let's continue to empower ourselves through knowledge. It says, through knowledge shall the just be delivered. Through knowledge shall be the just be delivered. And it says in Daniel 11:32, they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. So that's it on Licensed to Succeed. Today, we come to you live every Tuesday and Friday at 10 a.m. West African time. And I hope that you have enjoyed today's edition. So you want to join me next Tuesday when I will be speaking on another very important aspect of, the all-important, subject of success. Join me on Tuesday and Wednesday live. My name is Olatunji Sobodu. I remain your anchor. Please share the link. Let others, benefit the way you have been benefiting. Remember, the lasting legacy has to do with what value you extend to others. And if you have not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe so that you can be notified next time, there's going to be a broadcast, okay? So that you won't miss any of our broadcasts. All right, that's where we call it a day. Don't forget, check out Equip Bootcamp. 40 days, it will change your life. That's all I can say. That's all I can. It's like nothing that you have ever encountered. And it's all about how to succeed. Succeeding through building the excellent spirit in yourself. All right. Have a wonderful weekend as well. God bless you and bye-bye. Thank you for joining me today.